Hello, my friends. Before the show starts, I wanted to take a moment to ask you, the listener, for a little bit of help this holiday season. My dogs, Henwolf and Chicano, have both developed serious health problems, all at once and all around Christmas, and I could use a little bit of help making sure I can take care of their bills. So if you want to find out how you might be able to help out, just go to WeeklySpooky.com and click on Help My Dogs. Thank you again, and now let's get on with the show. Technology makes Christmas time so much more convenient. You can have all the gifts and goodies brought right to your door. And in the future, we'll have big metal assistants there to wrap our gifts and entertain our children. But what happens if they turn on us on Christmas Eve?
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hello, my friends. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly. I'm your host and narrator, Henrik Kuto, and thank you so much for joining us as we head toward the holiday. This is the third of 4 original stories of horror, murder, mayhem, and more that we're bringing you. But before we get to that, I want to say very simply, thank you so much for listening. It really does mean everything to me. And if you have an opportunity, please go to your favorite podcasting app and make sure you're subscribed, because this show goes on all year long. Halloween is not once a year, and neither is Scary Christmas. And while you have your podcasting app open, give us a 5-star review. It really helps the show. It helps people discover it, and it costs you absolutely nothing. And on a more personal note, I'm going through some medical issues with my pets, my 2 rescue dogs, Henwolf and Chicano, and we could use just a little bit of financial help this time of year. You probably heard about it at the start of the show. If you want to help in any way, just go to WeeklySpooky.com and click on Help My Dogs. I really cannot tell you how moved I am by all the kind words and financial help we've gotten during this very, very challenging time. And if you want to support the show in general, while you're at WeeklySpooky.com, just click on Patreon. And for as little as $1 a month, you can join 95 other spookies in keeping the show going. But now, it's time for the terror. So let's get to this story after a very quick word from our sponsors. Operation Deadly Night by Keith Tomlin. The New York Spectator, Tuesday, September 20th, 2047. Headline: Rollins Robotics ready to roll out Robo-Santas by Robert Jackson. The Rollins Robotics Company, RRC, announced today that they will be offering a Santa Claus modification, or mod, for their popular line of RMS X7 android butlers. The kit will include new behaviors and routines, as well as a Santa jacket, hat, and beard. The company said that the kits should start shipping as early as November 1st. Eric Vasquez, a professor of economics at MIT, expects the trend of introducing add-ons to personal Android servants, or PASs, to increase in the future. Quote, "With almost a quarter of Americans owning a PAS, nearly everyone that can afford one already has one," Professor Vasquez said. Offering the ability to modify your Android butler is the next logical step and could be a real boost to RRC's bottom line. If they want to hang on to their nearly 60% market share, they need to justify their higher price point to consumers and stave off lower-priced competition, such as Modern Robotics, Inc. December 24th, 7:56 a.m., Port Presley, Maryland. The delivery drone descended from the sky and hovered in front of a white, narrow 3-story townhouse as it verified the address. Verification complete. It gently deposited a package on the mat in front of the door and sent a signal that tripped the doorbell circuit. Duty complete. It shot up in the air, continuing its endless journey to supply goods to the masses. The Rollins Robotics Model RMS X715 personal android servant, known to its owners as Charles, noted the buzz of the doorbell and turned off the iron before placing it on the ironing board. He turned towards the door and his tread softly hummed as he rolled across the carpet. Charles had a humanoid torso, arms and head covered in metallic gold skin, sitting on top of a metal pole ending in a base with a series of independently functioning treads. These treads help him maneuver over difficult terrain, including stairs. Wearing a butler's jacket, he had the poise and dignity of an Old English butler. Charles opened the door and retrieved the package. He quickly scanned the label and entered the kitchen. "Mr. Molson, a package has arrived for you," he stated in his flat metallic voice. George Molson looked up from his newspaper and held out his hand. His level of excitement shot up when he looked at the sender's information. "Helen, this is the Santa mod I was telling you about. I was hoping we might be able to get it before Christmas." They certainly cut it close. "A mod? Is this something for Charles?" Helen asked. George sighed. "Yes, I told you about this weeks ago. It turns Charles into a Santa Claus." George walked over to the kitchen counter and grabbed a paring knife from the knife block. "That's nice, dear," Helen replied absently. Disappointed over Helen's lack of enthusiasm, George said, "At least the kids'll love it." Helen thought about it and replied, "Well, the twins'll love it, but Kevin'll hate it." "Well, Kevin is 16 years old. He hates everything." Helen sighed. "You're right about that." As George opened up the package and took out the Santa outfit, Helen changed subjects. "I wish you didn't have to work today. It's Christmas Eve." "We talked about this. It's either I work today or we'll have to cut our trip to Martha's Vineyard short," he said absently as he scanned the instructions for the mod. "I know, it's just that there's so much to do to get ready for our trip tomorrow." George laid the instructions on the table and looked at his wife. "You'll handle it beautifully. You always do," he said, looking at his watch. "Oh, I have to get going. I'll be home late." Turning to Charles, George gave instructions. "Charles, I need you to download the Christmas update and, after all the kids are in bed, put on the outfit and enable Santa mode." He indicated the clothes on the table. "You'll need to wrap the presents that are in my office and put them under the tree. Wake everyone up at 7 a.m. if we're not up already. You'll be passing out presents and singing Christmas carols. Have breakfast ready by 8:30. We'll need to be on the road by 10. "Yes, sir, it will be done," Charles said. George turned back to his wife. "I gotta go. Try and have a nice day," he said as he kissed her on top of her head. He turned and left the room. A few seconds later, Helen heard the front door open and shut. Helen sighed. So much to do, she thought. Rubbing her temples, she addressed Charles. "Charles, I need you to clean the house from top to bottom. I will not come back from vacation to a dirty house. Finish all of the laundry, pack our clothes for the trip, and make sure that the twins, especially Tommy, take a bath. Have lunch ready by noon and dinner ready by 7. She paused. "Mr. Molson will not be joining us for dinner. If you have any issues, I'll be in my room. I need to lay down and rest for a bit." "Yes, ma'am, it will be done," Charles said. Helen left the room as Charles began cleaning. Kevin Molson sat on the edge of his bed, playing a video game. He was wearing a pair of thick VR goggles with opaque lenses. Soft pads covered each ear. His head and hands jerked back and forth as he worked an invisible joystick. "Yeah, this sucks. We'll be gone for over 2 weeks," Kevin said over the headset to his girlfriend. "Yeah, I'll miss you too, babe, but I'll call every night." He nodded and smiled. "Yeah, that would be sexy, and I promise I won't let anyone else see the pictures." Kevin listened for a few more minutes before slamming his hand down on the bed and yelling, "You bitch! What? Oh, no, not you. I just got fragged in the game. I hate campers." Charles knocked on Kevin's door and called out, "Master Kevin?" When he received no reply, he checked the data streams and identified Kevin's gaming stream. Tapping into it, he said, "Master Kevin, this is Charles. May I enter your room?" Kevin snarled, "Damn it, leave me alone!" No, not you, babe. Charles the fucking robot is being a pain in my ass again. You are so lucky you can't afford a robot maid. "Master Kevin, your mother has requested me to clean your room and pack your clothes for the trip," Charles stated. Kevin had learned that once Charles was set on a task, he would not relent until the task was complete. "Fine. Come in," Kevin said, mockingly. He tapped the side of his VR goggles, and the lenses became clear, allowing him to see the android enter his room. As Charles worked, quietly and efficiently, Kevin spent the time making fun of him to his girlfriend while knocking things off the dresser for Charles to pick up. Charles left Kevin's room and rolled down the hall to the bedroom of the twins. He heard a loud thump and laughter. Knocking on the door, he asked, "Master Tommy, Mistress Tammy, may I enter?" He heard whispering and more giggles. After a few moments, Tammy said, "Come in." When Charles entered the room, he saw 6-year-old Tammy sitting on the edge of the bed, both hands pressed against her mouth, trying to stifle the laughter. Charles rolled in and stopped a few feet from the bed. "Your mother tasked me with making sure you and your brother bathe, and I need to clean your room before you go to bed." Instead of answering, Tammy removed one hand from around her mouth and pointed behind Charles. Charles rotated his torso to look behind him just in time to see Tommy leaping off a bookshelf. Charles caught Tommy in midair and began to spin his torso around, increasingly faster. Tommy squealed with laughter the whole time. Charles stopped spinning and gently put Tommy down. The child took a couple of steps, stumbling like a drunk sailor, and plopped down on the floor, grinning like mad. Charles looked at the twins and asked, "Okay, who wants to get a bath first?" Each of them pointed at the other. Later that night, the only sound that could be heard in the house was the sound of Charles's treads as he maneuvered around the family room furniture and placed the last present, almost lovingly, under the tree. Charles examined the front of the red and white Santa jacket he was wearing and adjusted his hat before moving to the charging pod. He backed into the pod and powered down. December 25th, 12:30 a.m., New York, New York. A man dressed in a dark blue hoodie and ripped jeans put down his coffee and looked around at the other patrons in the small coffee shop. He was sitting at a small corner table and had spent the last few hours making sure that no one was paying him any attention. Checking the clock on the wall, he saw that it was time to start. He removed his portable wrist tablet from his left arm and sat it on the table. Unfolding the screen, he clicked on several icons, and it was soon connected to a Rollins Robotics Company data server. He made one last quick scan around the room, then typed, "Run, Deadly Night," into the display. After confirmation that his program ran, he took a last drink of coffee, put his tablet back on his wrist, and strolled out the door into the night. December 25th, 12:30 a.m., Port Presley, Maryland. Charles's head snapped up to attention, his gold skin reflecting moonlight behind his white beard. He tilted his head as if he was listening to something far away before he uncoupled from the power connection and began to roll through the living room. He crossed the hall into the kitchen and stopped in front of the counter. Reaching up, he withdrew a large chef's knife from the block. Humming a Christmas tune, he proceeded out into the hallway and then began ascending the stairs. The door to the main bedroom flew open, and Charles rushed in. "Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!" he exclaimed. Helen jerked awake, sitting upright in her bed. "What? What's going on?" Helen looked confused. "Why, it's Christmas, the most magical time of the year," Charles said in a deep, booming voice. Helen snapped, "It's the goddamn middle of the night. Go downstairs and be quiet until morning." "What?" Charles boomed. "And miss Christmas? We can't do that. You haven't even had your present yet." Charles rolled around to the side of the bed and plunged the kitchen knife into her stomach. "I made this just for you at the North Pole." Charles began singing Jingle Bells and stabbing to the beat of the song. Helen tried to scream, but all she could manage was a gurgle amid the rush of blood. In the other room, Kevin had his VR goggles on, floating through the net, looking for sites that show inappropriate images, the kind his parents wouldn't approve of. A few minutes earlier, he had wedged an old hockey stick in the doorframe to keep his parents out. After all, a teenager needs his privacy. He went to one of his favorite sites, the one that featured his favorite adult star. Finding a recent video of hers, he laid back and began to enjoy it, when a voice rang through his headset. "Oh, Kevin, naughty, naughty, don't you want to be on Santa's good list?" said a deep voice. Kevin sat up. "Who the hell is this? Get off my stream!" he yelled. "Come on now, Kevin. Be nice. Let Santa in. I want to give you your present," the voice said. Kevin tore the goggles off of his head, and he could now hear someone pounding on his bedroom door. The door was shaking in its frame, and the wood was beginning to splinter. Getting off the bed, Kevin could hear singing some old Christmas carol, and he noticed a metallic tone to the voice. Charles? Is that you?" Kevin asked, slowly approaching the door. "Some call me Kris Kringle, but the kids call me Santa. Ho, ho, ho," Charles bellowed from behind the door. "You finally flipped your circuits, man! You're crazy!" Kevin yelled back. There was a few moments of silence. Then, a thud as a knife was plunged through the door. "Jesus Christ!" Kevin exclaimed. He began to look around his room for a weapon. Any weapon. There was another thud as Charles plunged the knife through the door again. The knife was twisted about, widening the crack. Pulling it back, Charles was about to ram the knife through the door a third time when he registered movement from down the hall. Turning his head, he could see the twins staring at him from their bedroom doorway. Charles turned towards them, the white trim of his jacket soaked in blood. He spread his arms wide, welcoming. "Come on, children. Come and sit on Santa's knee. Tell me what you want for Christmas." Charles laughed jollily as he rolled forward toward the twins' room. The twins screamed and slammed their bedroom door closed. Kevin heard the scream and began to panic. He never realized how much he loved those little twerps until now. Finally remembering the baseball equipment in his closet, he ran over and started tearing through it. After a few moments, he emerged with an aluminum baseball bat. Charles got to the closed door of the twins' room and pushed it open. He began to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer as he rolled into the room. Sobbing could be heard coming from under the nearest bed. As he rolled over to it, he heard something behind him. Spinning around, he spotted Tommy, hiding next to the bookshelf. Tommy tried to run when Charles reached toward him, but the android grabbed Tommy by the neck. Holding him up in the air, Charles began to spin. As he spun his torso faster and faster, he began singing faster. He was soon rotating at a blinding speed, and when he sang the song's last words, he let go. Tommy flew through the air, hitting the wall above the headboard. His legs and head punched through the drywall, but his back hit a wall stud, cracking both the stud and his spine. Tommy slid limply down the wall and tumbled off the bed. Tammy was lying under the bed, her eyes squeezed shut, trying to hold back the tears. She felt something was wrong, that she was incomplete. She opened her eyes and stared into the unblinking gaze of her twin. His lifeless body sprawled on the carpet in front of her. As she began to scream, something grabbed her ankle and pulled her out from under the bed. She turned and looked at Charles. He looked back at her, grinning, and asked, "Hi, little girl. Would you like to sit on Santa's lap?" Kevin was finally able to open his door. Charles's assault on it had warped the door frame, causing the hockey stick to wedge it shut even tighter. It took quite a few swings with the bat to clear the wedge. When he stepped into the hall, he saw Tommy lying on the floor, twisted and bent in unnatural angles. Charles was pulling Tammy out from under the bed, holding her up by her ankles like a fisherman holds a prized catch. Spurred on by pure rage, Kevin ran up behind Charles and began to rain down blows from the baseball bat. Tammy tumbled to the floor as Charles let go of her, but Kevin kept on swinging. The android turned toward Kevin and reached out for him, but the unrelenting onslaught caused him to tip over. The bat rose and fell time and time again, while Charles began to sing Silent Night. George Molson entered his house after a long day. The kids would be getting up for Christmas morning in a few hours, but he should be able to catch a bit of sleep. He took off his jacket and hung it on the coat rack. Turning, he heard a grinding noise and noticed Charles entering the foyer. He looked to be in bad shape. A couple of treads were broken, his main shaft was bent, and he had a lot of large dents on his torso and head. He was also wearing the Santa jacket, but there seems to be something dark and crusty all over the front of it. "Charles, what happened? Is everything okay?" George asked. "Everything is fine, my lad. It's Christmas. Ho, ho, ho," Charles replied. "Charles, exit Santa mode and tell me what's going on," George said, the concern growing in his voice. "Come this way, young man. Come, get your gift from under the tree." Charles began rolling toward the living room, herding George along in front of him. "What the hell is going on here? Are Helen and the kids okay? Wait, is that dried blood on your jacket?" George kept backing up as Charles pushed him into the living room. "Now, young man, choose a gift," Charles boomed, pointing toward the far wall. George glanced that way and did a double take, all color leaving his face as he realized that the Christmas tree had new ornaments, ones made up of fingers and toes and other bits of human flesh. "Oh, God!" George moaned as he covered his mouth, trying not to be sick. He stumbled away from Charles, his back hitting the brick of the fireplace. He looked up and saw 4 new objects hanging from the mantel. These were not the stockings that they hung with care last week. These were heads, human heads, each with a bright red bow in the middle of their forehead. George fell to his knees sobbing. "Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!" Charles said as he raised a knife. December 25th, San Francisco, California. Percy Billington, CEO and founder of Modern Robotics, Inc., sat at his desk and looked at a wall of monitors, each tuned into a different news broadcast. Occasionally, he tapped a button on a control panel to unmute a specific channel. Monitor 27. Getting dozens of reports of death at the hands of android servants in the Houston area. Police are still trying to determine the extent of these bizarre attacks. Monitor 12. Have no idea why the robotic butlers would begin killing their owners. We have reports of killings in other states, so it would appear that this is not confined to the Indianapolis area. Monitor 40. It appears that the family was sitting down to open presents when their android butler began its violent attack. Wait, I'm being told that there are reports of other attacks in London. We're trying to confirm those rumors right now. Percy's phone buzzed, and he looked down to see a text message scrolling across the screen. It appears that Operation Deadly Night was a success, it read. Percy replied, "Beyond expectations." "And the rest of my money?" the reply asked. Percy punched a couple of keys on his keyboard and replied, "Sent." After a few minutes, he received a final text. "Payment verified. Pleasure doing business with you." Percy sat back and enjoyed the moment, allowing himself a quick smile. Great success requires taking risks, and it seemed like this one was going to pay off. Celebration over, he resumed his solemn demeanor. He clicked a button and replaced the newscasts with live images of members of the Modern Robotics board and other key employees. Clicking his microphone live, he spoke, his deliberate, slow, soft voice slicing through the air. "Gentlemen and ladies, it seems that there has been some incidences involving android servants attacking and potentially killing their owners. I have it on good authority that this issue is restricted to the Rollins Robotics line of X7 androids. We all agree that this is a tragedy, and our hearts go out to the victims, but we need to recognize that this does present an opportunity. With our new line of android hitting the market next month, we had projected that sales would be sluggish. However, with these new and tragic circumstances, we have an opportunity to capture market share from RRC. We will have our friends in the media highlight the dangers of the X7 line and the advances we've made in security and safety for our new EB1 series. People will see our new line as a safe alternative. It's vital that we move on this quickly, and I expect everyone to be in the office in 3 hours for an in-person strategy meeting." Todd Atkins, Assistant Director of Research, raised his hand. When Percy acknowledged him, Todd spoke. Sir, I understand the importance of this, but it's Christmas." Percy leaned in until his face filled up the screen. "Christmas?" he said. "Bah, humbug." If that story didn't make your season scary and bright, you're probably already dead. Big thank you to Keith Tomlin for bringing us such an awesome, scary Christmas story. I really, truly do appreciate it. The holiday season is coming in like a lion, and it is my favorite time of year, even when things are a little more tumultuous than I would like. And these stories definitely bring me into the Christmas spirit, and I hope they do it for you too. And I want to say a humongous thank you to everyone who's been joining our Patreon. My goal is to get to 100 patrons by the end of the year. We're at 95 right now. So please consider joining up for as little as $1 a month. And you can even pay that $1 a month in advance for a full year. You get exclusive content, bonus stories, and so much more. And speaking of Patreon, I want to give an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who give just a little bit more to hear their names on the show. And they are Kelly Oram, Julia Kirsch, Christopher Sullivan, Brent McCullough, Gino Lyons, Steve King, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, Jeff and George Hilton, Craig Cohen, and Kevin Fry. Thank you all so much. You've really allowed us to keep this show going and going and going. And there's no sign of stopping. Next week's show is by Horror Meister David O'Hanlon, and I know you're going to enjoy it. And make sure you keep your eyes peeled, because there may be some little Christmas gifts popping up in the feed, something a little extra for while you're driving to your relative's house. But for now, my friends, I'm going to get out of here. I have some presents to wrap and some vet appointments to attend. But thank you all for keeping things cheery and scary all through the season. For myself, for my executive producer Rob Fields, my producer Dan Wilder, and my composer Ray Mattis, I will talk at you very, very soon.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.